Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sound Horizons podcast brought to you by TuneTrack. I'm Rick, and with me today, there's a phrase, maybe you've never heard it. It's an old school, old world phrase called super groovy kick-ass dude. I don't know if you're familiar with the phrase or not, but when that phrase comes up, super groovy kick-ass dude, we have the definitive with us today. We're talking with the definitive super groovy kick-ass dude. Not that all our other guests aren't awesome in their own way and have their own cool names that we assign to them on and off camera, but this one's unique and special. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking your work time to watch this somewhere that you're probably not supposed to. Let's get into it. Please welcome your friend and mine, everyone's favorite producer, mixer, engineer, editor, jack of all trades, master of even more, Mr. Ulrich Wild. Dun, dun, dun. Hi, sir.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing all right, especially after an intro like that.
Well, I call them like I see them, sir. I call them like I see them.
Well, thank you very much for that.
I wanted to just jump right in and ask you a question because I don't know if many people know. You are originally born and raised in Switzerland, yeah?
Yeah.
Do you miss it now that you're stuck in Los Angeles because of the music industry, or do you get to go back often?
I don't get to go back as often as I'd like. I miss it, somewhat. I do like LA. I picked LA because I like it.
You're one of those guys. All right.
Well, I came from a cold, wet climate, and I like hot, dry heat. So
sure.
Notwithstanding the 4 or 5 days we just had, which is just oppressively hot and just no breeze or anything. So that wasn't as much fun as it should have been. But at the studios are air conditioned, that's usually the case. I know mine is, so it's comfy here. But yeah, I do like LA. I like what it brings. Culturally, it's just so diverse, and I almost liken living in LA as world traveling because you literally have everything here.
It's true.
And that is hard to find elsewhere. I mean, there's places that come close that have some of the things or most of the things, but literally like everything you can find around the globe.
Well, and you know better than anyone because I just did it to you myself. LA takes the brunt of every joke because especially when it comes to the creative arts, because there's a culture, it's not the culture, but there's a culture that sort of permeates. That's kind of this. It's the stereotypical vapid flight. Do you find that to be true in your experiences there? I mean, obviously we know it exists, but in your circle, obviously you're working in music. So do you find that a lot there?
Well, LA has something for everyone. What you find in LA is that you can't find anything. That's kind of the big problem. Or it's really hard to find the things you like. Well, once you find them, that's where you are. That's like that'll be your neighborhood. That's like your hangouts. That's the shops that you visit. The whole plastic LA thing. That's there.
Sure.
We don't go there. Those are people that come from other places. Like,
ouch.
But you know what I mean? The people from LA are nothing like that.
Sure.
And there's another joke about LA or Vegas, and it's like the difference between LA and Las Vegas is in Las Vegas the losers go home.
Wah, wah.
I know. So there's lots of stupid jokes like that. But go ahead.
I was going to say that brings up sort of this interesting. It's not really a new phenomenon, but over the past decades or so, LA has also sort of become this music hub where you've got these major studios and a lot of work gets done. I'm not LA, Las Vegas. I'm sorry, Vegas. And within that proximity, do you find for your work that you just end up working out of your place a lot, or have you been sort of gallivanting around the countryside between, whether it's Vegas, New York, Chicago? I mean, are you a homebody there with the studio, or do you get out to other studios very much these days?
I'm pretty much locked into my spot at this point. I don't think I've set foot off my property for like 10 years, except for like grocery stores and dropping kids off at school.
You're living my dream. That's so everything you need is there. Then at your facility,
right?
Yeah, wow,
absolutely, yeah,
wow, okay.
Absolutely, yeah. It's really cool. One thing that I want to mention about a city like LA is LA is a production city. I'm not talking necessarily about like music production or film production, but like it's a city where things are being made. And it's really easy to hate production cities,
Sure.
like you hear things about like Boston or San Francisco or like all these boutique cities are is kind of the alternative, like the walkable downtowny kind of thing,
Yeah.
and people go there to party and or shopping, or what I mean.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different city from a city like LA that's sprawled out and very industrial and very industrious. I mean, people work here like crazy, which
Sure.
is not something you usually hear about.
No. Well, and I mean, we were joking about it earlier. I mean, if you're going to have to work, you might as well work where the weather's nice and the sun's out. I mean, that never hurts. So that's a beautiful thing too.
Right,
Do
right.
you find have you ever, speaking about that, traveling from studio to studio place, a lot of producers and engineers, mixers in this day and age obviously have a studio at the house or have a studio that's theirs. Do you find when you're going to work with an artist that you ever get any pushback to working at your place because they've set in their mind they want to do something grand or go somewhere else, or are they always just pretty much kind of cool with it?
Oh, they're pretty much always cool with it, and my thing is, like, if you wanna work somewhere else, I'm fine, I'm down, I'll go, like, I'm not doing this to, like, to stay home, you know what I mean?
Sure,
Like, I
yeah.
can I can easily work elsewhere, but, mostly it's a budget thing. It's just easier to accommodate budgets these days, by working in my place, but I've made a couple of records outside. One of them I went to Denver with a band called Source, and that was fun. Go different town. That's what we used to do all the time.
Right.
Like literally just travel around, move around, new studio every couple of months or whatever. Until it wasn't like that anymore. You know?
So that's a great segue because you are uh, undoubtedly in most listeners, most people's minds, you are kind of one of the definitive rock and metal guys. I mean, your discography includes records that have sort of defined these components of the genres, both genres. And I'm curious if when you started your journey, did you set in your mind, I'm going to be the rock and metal guy, or did it happen organically for you?
Like everything kind of happened organically. I was just a metalhead as a kid. And so I went and sought out music that I liked in production and studios. I was lucky to get started at aside from some other studios, but ended up at One on One Studios where the
Wow.
Metallica Black Album was made.
Yeah.
And that was you know, in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, there was a great drum room. So a lot of metal bands came through for this huge drum sound. And so I got to work in a lot of metal bands, mostly drum tracking, some overdubbing as well, but a lot of them came in just for drum tracking. Along, with other music as well, which is always great to be more well-rounded, or find the tricks that other genres use and implement them. Do some cross-genre breeding kind of thing.
Are you still a fan after all these years?
Absolutely. It's I think once you're a metalhead, you're always a metalhead.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think it'll really go away.
Out of all the artists you've produced, which one has your favorite album cover?
Oh, geez, I have no idea.
See? That's a head scratcher, right? So
Yeah,
you've done all these
yeah.
amazing records. You gotta have
Uh-huh.
one or two album covers where you're like, that's pretty awesome. That stuck out.
Oh, dude, I can't even tell. I
All
don't
right.
even know what
We'll
album
come
covers
back to
look like
that.
anymore.
You know,
Yeah.
we'll come back to that. You just let that roll in the background.
All
So
right, right.
one of the things that I think also is pretty unique about your particular discography is there are two things in the production world. And maybe you don't know this because we all talk about you when you're not around because you're, one of our favorite producers.
Oh,
So,
boy.
but one of the things that we always kind of marvel at is you have this wide scope of in hard rock, metal, rock of vocalists. And it not just I say vocalist because singer would be just the easy way out. They all sing, pop music, you just get a different version of a great singer. But in the rock and metal worlds, you have vocalists that have these different styles from growling and screaming to yelling to singing to the blues. and yet somehow you generally tend to somehow capture from Pantera to Buck. I mean, if you look at just Pantera and Buck Cherry, two totally different approaches to singing from both frontmen, but you capture that vocal in the essence of how we see them and how we actually kind of relate to them as musicians. Is that something you've focused on cognizantly, or is that just again another byproduct of the process, the way you make music? Because it seems like that would not be something that you would just like, well, here's my vocal chain. It's a set it and forget it sort of thing. Everybody uses the same thing, go. Like maybe a pop producer would do.
It's a little bit of both, really. For starters, Terry produced both of those albums, so he's the driving force behind any of that. But the approach, I think, ultimately is that you, number one, you have to make the artist feel comfortable, right? And so that can go many different directions. Like somebody who's just a standalone vocalist who doesn't play guitar or any instruments at the same time is very used to holding a mic in their hand, and their body posture is very much a performance thing that affects their vocals. Their throat, like their whole body sings, right? So taking away that posture that they used to from a live show and making them stand straight behind a microphone like some kind of dental apparatus looking thing, it's not necessarily what they're used to. So we've done a lot of records. I don't know why the hell this is doing what it's doing. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
It's doing a lot of the having them do what they do live brings out their best performance. And I'd rather have a better performance with us that's sonically somewhat inferior because we're using a handheld mic than the other way around, especially since we're looking at guys who have like distorted voices or like to add extra distortion on it. We're not making pristine Celine Dion records that, we need to hear the last breath, like the decay of the last breath of some performance. I mean, that can happen also, but it's not like that's a standard thing that we do all the time. So getting that, getting to the point where the performance, where the artist is happy and comfortable, or uncomfortable to get the performance out of it. That's also a thing, we need to get some angst into this kid, or like this is boring sounding. Let's roughing him up a little bit. He needs to get beaten up some, it just really, it really depends. I like to do a lot of double compression, going straight to tape or disc or whatever into the straight to interface.
Sure.
Usually one of them is set to like hit the quick transient kind of things, and another one that just squishes it kind of on a slower level, and just to really capture everything, like from the because they have such a dynamic range too, so it's keep them from going over, but still hearing the lower parts, and then we'll compress more in the mix anyway. So it's a lot of compression.
You brought up a great point. I mean, obviously you spent a lot of time behind the desk as an engineer. So as you're pulling those thoughts together for the producer, even whether you're producing or anyone else is producing, are you hearing any of the challenges with that vocal style as it's happening? Let me articulate. So you've got the band, they're used to playing live, the singer's doing their thing, but you're also recording the guitars. And are you hearing in the guitar tone and the vocal tone where this might be a challenge later in the mix and trying to fix it beforehand? Or are you just, to your point, bringing it in like they might be comfortable doing it already and dealing with it later?
Again, that kind of can be going both ways. Like a band that's kind of established kind of has their thing going on. So I'd rather deal with it after the fact because it's probably close as already. Somebody who needs to get molded a bit more, I might get more attention from the get-go about getting certain sounds worked out before we dive in too deep. other times having that clash is what makes the record great, so you kind of don't want to detract from that either. Sometimes it's a fine balance between producing and ruining shit. You know what I mean? It's literally sometimes the task is just to stay out of the way, and let them do their thing. Um, I get people um, that come in and go like, "Oh, I've done all this stuff on in Logic or Pro Tools or whatever." And I go like, "Help me fix it. I think I did everything wrong." I was like, "Well, yeah, it's not wrong, and you're able to do it in Logic, so
Sure.
it's right, like it's doable, so it's not wrong. It's not something I would have ever thought of to do, or like I can't even figure out what the fuck you're thinking." You know what I mean? Which makes it in turn interesting for me because I'm learning something.
Hmm.
But if I were to like make them do it in a way that like makes sense to me, I probably would ruin everything. So I just go like, dude, print it as it is. And if we need something different, then we'll change it. But like let's not ruin what you have because it's cool,
Wow.
you know? And so that's super important to not to like ruin the good stuff.
Yeah. Is that obviously when you're producing, that's at front of your mind if you're engineering, or even let's just say you're editing, or you're doing, like you said, you're just kind of stepping in to help something that's already in the process. Do you find yourself going for the same bag of tricks you would if you were producing, or is it a different mindset for you?
I think you're always assessing each project and even each song within the project for its own thing.
Mm,
Like sometimes you find that an artist is kind of on autopilot and they know what they're doing. They have a thing and like they write the song. The songs are great and everything's working right. And other ones you come in and go like, okay, they have great parts, but like I lose interest or like some stuff doesn't make sense to me and then you just like I always put it up for discussion. I don't, I'm not like a dictator kind of producer, because it's their album, right? For starters.
sure.
And so like my fingerprint on what we're doing is big enough as it is, like between like the way I choose sounds and mixing and, like my input and everything. Like I don't need to have more input on and dictate more of their sound that I already do. Right. So the going in and helping the band make the best record that they can make is kind of the job, right? And that could entail anything. That could be staying out of the way and just fucking press record and fucking let things take their course, or going like, all right, kids, we're gonna have to do a few things
Sure.
because this is not working. I don't. You guys aren't happy. The label's not happy. Nobody's happy. We gotta figure out what's going on, and then go take everything apart and put it back together.
Wow.
You know.
So the same thing can be said because again, in many circles, fandom, what also gets talked about a lot is your approach to recording guitars. Because again, in the pantheon of hard and heavy music, high gain guitars can very easily just disappear into the mix and just be they all sound the same. But you somehow tend to get um, whether you're engineering or producing, you get these unique guitar tones that hold their own water and seem to be, again, completely distinct to that project. I don't hear the White Zombie guitar tone in your other records. I don't hear whether you're engineering or producing, you just seem to have a knack for figuring out this is what they're going for. And I'm curious. Again, it sounds like you're like so easy to work with as a producer with the perspective you have. Do you find that you have to, or that you get involved in guitar tone shaping as much as we all might think you might as an engineer or producer, or that a lot of these guitar players really do have it dialed in and figured out before they get there?
I probably do get involved into this, into the like as much as you think. Everything you heard is true, and worse. It goes back to the beginning. I was like, who is this band? What do they sound like? And the answer really comes down to, like, when a band walks in, it's like, make me sound like Pantera. I was like, no. What we're going to do is we're going to make you sound like you. So the next band that's coming in wants to sound like you. That's their request. So make me sound like you guys. Like, that's the goal. Like the identity, the uniqueness, I forgot who said it, and I would give credit to whoever it was, and maybe there's multiple people, but like each song, when you turn it on or it comes on, like the first 5 seconds, you're supposed to know what song it is, right? Like that, oh, that's Black Hole Sun, or
Right.
oh, that's, Thunder Kiss 65 or whatever. Like, instantly what it is. And that's the goal. It's between the sound and the riff and the you know what I mean? All of it combined. And so I think it also goes back to the vocals, what kind of guitar sound do you build around the vocalist? Like somebody who has really deep, low voice can stand guitars that are brighter sitting on top and then engulfing the vocals that way. Or the opposite is true. When you have like these really searing guitars and a vocalist, it's the same range, then you have a clash and you have to kind of, EQ them around the vocals.
If you have to choose in a mix, what's gonna take priority? Is it gonna be the vocal or the guitar?
Well, that probably depends on the section, but ultimately the vocals usually win. But it's not even so much that, like, ideally everything is the loudest, right? That's kind of the goal, right? But it really depends on what the listener is listening to, right? So if you listen to a thing like some song and you go like, oh, that snare sounds awesome, it's like the loudest thing in the mix, and then you go like, wait, no, obviously the vocals are the loudest thing in the mix, and you're like, but the guitars are fucking slam, they're the loudest thing, and that's because they're sitting in different spaces sonically, right? So the snare's the loudest thing here, the vocal's the loudest thing here, the guitar's the loudest thing here, and so that's kind of how you make that work. So it's all about space, carving out space for other things and making, like, having stuff poke through, like, and that's why certain sounds, when you hear them on their own, don't sound good. But they sound great. All of it combined sounds great. Yeah, like the bass sounds just like some average, like tinny, kind of weird, stupid thing. But along with the guitars, the guitars sound kind of mid-rangey and kind of dull, but with the bass, it all sounds good together. So,
Do you solo a lot when you're mixing, or do you try and keep everything relative, like we said, to the context?
I do solo a lot, but I work, but not for long times. Okay, so I solo out just to check to see what that is, and then pop it back in and EQ it while sitting in the mix, and then just come back and solo quick to go like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, or okay, I know why it's fucked up, what to look for, because that's the whole thing. It's all fixing shit. I'm an audio janitor,
Well, okay, but you've been in the audio janitorial field since before we had the Loudness wars. So I wanted to ask you, because you were making some pretty heavy and definable records before we had this whole online digital LUFS, like, until the world lost its mind and everything needed to be pinned to the floor from the beginning to the end. How did you, obviously it's not that big of a deal anymore, but for a while there, if you were making rock or metal music, it was expected that your master was just going to blow the doors off in every scenario all the time. Was that ever a consideration for you while mixing or doing anything else? Or have you always just kind of approached it the same way you approached things prior to that scenario?
Well, it always had to be slamming, you know what I mean? We make metal records, so they can't be timid, right? And oddly enough, I think the Loudness war has always kind of been there for me, or for us, because I was just when we remastered the Static X record machine, I went back to that master. It's loud as hell. I mean, it is, and the new one is not louder.
Mm.
You know,
Oh, really?
so
Okay.
no, it's about the same as far as the CD is concerned.
Wow.
And that's like, and I think the loudest war really started back in the old days with the A&R guys wanting to have a louder thing on the radio. I think that's
Sure.
where it really started, and it kind of just never let up.
Yeah.
Even though now there seems to be some relief.
I feel like sometimes as a community, we just run out of things to talk about. So we create drama and the loudness war. And the loudness wars. We got tired of arguing over what was the best amp modeler. So we're like, wow, loudness wars. There we go.
Right. Check out the pod. It sounds just like check out this new pod. It sounds just like a tube amp.
But now I accidentally transitioned into something I have to ask, since you're known as one of those guys that gets guitars. But obviously they exist. We love them. People hate them. People love them. But do you end up using a lot of guitar modeling these days, or are you more, if you have the option, still an amp guy?
Whatever works. Whatever works. There's some really great amp sims out there, and there's really great amps, and you shoot yourself in the foot if you don't use everything that's available to you. That's really what it boils down to.
I'm getting the sense, I could be wrong, please correct me if I'm wrong, that you're not very precious about the tools you use to accomplish the means to your end. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I really don't care.
Yeah.
What it is that, like, I'm serious. I
mean, that's the way it should be. It's amazing. I love it.
Right. It's like, like ultimately that boils down to like audio equipment. You know what I mean? It's like, you can make a great album with like 1057s and a Mackie. And that's not to bash on like Mackies or any Goose 57. Like, it's just like that's inexpensive equipment that you can work and utilize and make something cool with it. You know what I mean? It's never an excuse to have a price tag keep you from doing things. You know what I mean? Like, and the other thing is, I never judge a piece of equipment by its price tag.
No.
You know what I mean?
That's a weird, we as a community, again, not just rock and metal, but music in general, for the past 5 or 6 years, it seems like we've shifted a lot of our attention to just gear. I mean, gear, review the gear. I mean, I don't know how many 1167 clones we can have, but we have all of them, and there will be more. And again, God bless anyone getting into that end of the industry, trying to make great gear for people, and I love it. But it as you know, like anything else, it can be incredibly polarizing. People in their mind think, if I don't sing through a Neve 1073, I'm not a professional. I can't do a thing, and I've always felt that metal and rock, based on their DIY ethos, were a little less precious about gear. But unfortunately, I've been proven wrong in some scenarios where we'll keep the names nameless. But it's great to hear you say that the job is to just make it sound good. Make it sound good.
Yeah, I mean, it really is that. I mean, like the guitar sound, for instance, like I'm guessing about 80% of the guitar sound is in the right hand, in the picking hand. You know what I mean? It's not even the frills and the speed and whatever. It's the way you play the guitar, the attack, the strings, and get that sound out of that string. That's like so much of the guitar sound.
Well, and with that, so when you talk about that sound with the guitars, when it comes to drums, do you like clutch your pearls if a guy comes in with a 14-piece drum set and think, or do you have any concerns, care, or any interest in how many drums come in for a record and whether or not they'll all be necessary or used?
If the guy knows how to play it and tune it,
so you do
the tuning of it. It's nice to have the colors. It's the tuning of the drums is a huge portion of the program. But knowing what to play, when to play, and what not to play is important too.
Yeah.
So having the colors available to you for certain sections of certain songs or whatever, that's important. Playing everything all the time, probably less of a thing, unless that's the thing. Right. You know what I mean? Like, you have some fucking crazy ass wild kind of fucking thing that's just like, fucking go, man, do your thing. Right. It's just so I don't know what you're gonna play in your second album, but because you've played everything
Right.
already.
Yeah. If you
You
get one.
know, yeah.
Okay. So one of the other things that everybody notices too, I think, especially when it comes to you as a producer, is you generally tend to form relationships with the artist because you're clearly working with the artist through a range of their career. Um, when you go into a gig, no matter what you're doing, editor, engineer, producer, are you going in with the mindset that you hope this turns into something longer term with every artist? Or are there some, and you don't have to mention names, where you're just like, oh, I'm glad that's over. Now I can get back to hopefully only doing this with other artists.
Um, I think you always hope for a long-term relationship. Um, and just like any relationship, some of them work out better than others. Um, I don't like, I think many artists benefit from working with different producers over time. Um, After about 3 or 4 albums, the first album is always kind of like get to know each other kind of thing, right? And the second album, like you've done that, and you kind of pick up where the first one left off, and then you can build on that for the third and fourth album. But for some people, after 3, 4 albums, you've kind of learned from each other what you can, and maybe it's time to break up the situation a little bit, and inject something new. And that could, if there's new members in the band, that's one way that can happen. Or if all the band members stay the same, maybe you do need to change a producer, or just a locale, or go into a different city, or try, get a co-writer, or something. Like sometimes you get a little stagnant and you can't necessarily have that. Um, so I think it's okay for people to go move on to different producers. It's kind of expected at some point.
When you started out your career, as you were working on a lot of these records, you were the engineer. Was there a pivot point for you in your career where you decided that, okay, engineer, great, I'm going to keep doing that, but I also want to get into producing? Or was it always on your mind as something that you were going to do and then you just flipped the switch and did it?
Well, I got into it knowing I would want to be a producer one day, and I just kept climbing the ladder, from intern to assistant engineer to Terry's right hand. Basically, I was only engineered for Terry Day. Um, and then at some point, I was taking the step and went out on my own. And
And were you concerned when you did that you wouldn't get any more engineering? I mean, was it a scary time for you? Was it like, well, what if I do this and it doesn't work, and now because I tried it, no one wants me as an engineer anymore?
yeah, it happens every day, really. To this day. I mean, like, it's it's kind of like that. Kind of like every time you make a big change like that, you go like, I'm done assisting. I'm not working for a studio anymore. I'm independent now.
Right.
That's a big step. But if you don't take that step and go into this, make that scary decision of like, I'm not working for the studio anymore, like I'm independent now, and suffer through it, then you'll always be an assistant engineer, because nobody's going to think of you as independent. Same thing with producers. Like, I'm going to be a producer now. It's like, fuck, what have I done? All right. You know what I mean?
Okay, so what's the first record you put your name on as a producer?
The first full album,
Yeah.
was actually, I believe it was a band from France called No One Is Innocent. That was kind of like those were the first people to dare use me.
And again, working with Terry, I'm sure didn't hurt. Again, it didn't hurt you transitioning out. But
Absolutely.
when you found yourself, okay, I'm the producer, I'm working with this French band, did you already have in your mind, again, your producer aesthetic, or were you doing your best imitation of what you had learned from working with other producers?
I think that's one and the same thing.
Is it? Yeah, nothing wrong with it.
Like, I
Yeah.
think you think you have your own producer aesthetic, but it's all based on the stuff you've learned and seen, or those are the tricks that you've seen other people use. And but you haven't seen those people use it with this band that you're working with. So, and it all kind of like, it's you just like anywhere else, you draw on the past experiences to try to make it through the present,
Sure. Did you find that again in the earlier part of your production career, was the fact that you had worked so intimately with Terry, was it a pro or a con or both for you? Did you
Oh,
get a lot
definitely a
of
pro.
yeah. Okay. You didn't get a lot
Definitely a
of
pro.
how many times did someone ask you to can make them sound like Dimebag Daryl? Is that happen constantly?
Oh yeah, that happened a lot. But again, the answer is always like you'll never sound like Dime,
No.
because like Dime will sound like Dime on your equipment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now,
That's the whole
still. Yeah.
that's the whole point. That's the playing itself is what makes you sound the way you sound. Like, you could take you could take any of the greats and put them on any equipment and it'll sound like them. And you can take any of these other people, no matter how great they are, put them on the equipment the greats were using, and they will sound nothing like them. It's just how it is.
So where's the moment in that timeline? So okay, you break out, you're doing production now, so you've got all this experience. You've already worked with Terry on some pretty big records that went on to do some pretty big things. When do you feel to yourself, okay, now I'm established as a producer? What's the project, the record, or the artist where you're like, that came out and you're like, okay, it's official. I've bought in my own mind. I'm doing this for real now.
Oh, it's definitely Static X's
It was.
Wisconsin Death Trip.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that was a
That's a big
huge turning
record.
point for me. Yeah, yeah,
Huge. Wow.
absolutely. Yeah,
And then obviously you worked with Static X on other records and other projects, but
sure.
did you find that work for you as a producer became, again, because of that success, did it get easier, or did you find that it was still the same grind, maybe just with a little more accolade?
It's still the same grind with a little bit more
Yeah.
accolade, like, uh, you always it's always a job interview, talking to a new band about a new project. It's a job interview. Do we get along? Do we have the same vision? Can I help them accomplish what they're looking for?
Well, I know now at your website, obviously people can reach out to you and get in touch with you about working on things. But at that point in time in your career, did you have an agent or a manager? Was there a gatekeeper, or were people really just coming to you through word of mouth or people you already knew?
It's always been word of mouth, but it all worked. Like, word of mouth always works with like people, right? And so you have these different avenues. I did have a manager at the time. I still have one now, as a different person at this point. But I was kind of plugged into a little bit of a machinery. Like, I had Terry's manager, and it was like a whole system that I got plugged into, which helped, for sure. And that definitely made things a lot easier back in the day, because the labels were so dominant.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's all changed, obviously. I mean, the labels are still here and dominant, but like the landscape has changed.
So you do the Static X record. How far along after the Static X record do you end up working with White Zombie?
Well, the White Zombie record was in 94, I think. And the
I
Static X was in 99, 98.
Oh, it's the other way around. I thought it was the other way around.
Yeah,
See,
yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't
No,
get
no,
my
no.
facts right. Sorry,
Yeah,
guys.
yeah, yeah.
But that was a pretty long-standing career. The reason I ask is because that's another one of those where you worked with them for quite a while on a number of different projects, you did the movie soundtrack. So you had already sort of been in this mindset of working with an artist through different seasons of their career and different seasons of their sound. And I was just curious how those two projects in particular, so like right now, I think a lot of people know you from working on the Dethklok stuff with Brendan Small, and that's its own thing. But these kind of journeys that you take with artists from the beginning, which is rare that you get an artist that blows up or is huge on a record that you're working
Sure,
on, and
yeah.
then you've got the pressure of whatever comes next. So how was it all the same experience for you? I guess is the question. Like, is there any different pressure based on the band itself, or do you just kind of apply your own pressures? Like, well, I did this, now I've got to be really great on this, then, or is it more of them coming in and saying, hey, we did this, we've got to be great on this, or is it never even really spoken?
I don't think it's spoken that way. Like, I always want to make the best record I can make. Like
Sure.
right now, like I was like, this is my best work. Like that's the goal, right? Every time you look back and you go like, well, you know, I should have done things differently on some of those records or whatever. Didn't know, learned some stuff. But those are snapshots in time, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why they're finished. If they weren't finished, they would never, you know, like they wouldn't be snapshots in time if you didn't finish them, right?
Mm.
Which is like a Guns N' Roses with Chinese Democracy album comes in. You know what I mean?
Wow.
It just got rewritten a million times or
I was
whatever
just
the
gonna
hell
say,
they
it's
did.
all
I
the
have no idea.
snapshots. That's a photo album. That's not even a
Right,
snapshot.
right. But so obviously, if you have a record that you made with a band, and it was successful, or even if it wasn't successful, it was just a great record, but it didn't do as well as you wanted to, and we have a second shot to make another one. You're going in and you're still going to try to make the best record you can make, like to make it better than the previous one. Um, I think that's, you can also go like, okay, we know some things that worked on the previous record. Let's do more of that. But as soon as you kind of start writing it for the business
Hmm.
or like making it for the business, then you're starting to kind of lose something. It's so important that the art doesn't take a back seat to
Sure.
that.
Well, and then in those scenarios, when you talk about the labels sort of ruling the roost back in the 90s, obviously in the early and late 90s, you have a successful record, and it does well for the label and everyone's happy. From your standpoint, is the label then for the second run around, are they recommending to go with you because you were part of the mojo for the success of the first one? And then are they throwing more money at the situation, or is it different from artist to artist back then?
It's just different every time, like there was no rhyme or reason to it. Like if you were lucky, they go like, "Hey, you guys did great. Do it again." There's a bit more money because everything got more expensive. You deserve it, whatever.
Sure.
Or it's in a contract. We didn't really want to, but here we go.
Right.
Whatever. Or other ones just like, yeah, that was really great, but it could have been better. We're gonna try somebody else. And they're like, thanks a lot. Or it could be like, yeah, that really sucked, but we believe in you guys. You know, do better next time.
Wow.
That could happen too.
Not today.
And it was rare then.
Yeah.
But back, you had the labels were doing more artist development at that point as well. Probably before my time, really. Like was it Ray Charles who didn't turn a profit for like 5 albums or something like that?
Something like that. Yeah.
So like those days are over.
Well, and you again, you started becoming much more active in the scene at a time when guitar-driven music was still very, very in vogue. It was very popular. The 90s is possibly the greatest time for guitar-driven rock and metal in popular culture that we've ever seen. So
Right.
fast forward to now, where it's back to being more of a niche. I mean, the metal and rock, like you said, they never kind of go away, but they certainly ebb and flow in the public populace. Do you remember? I asked this of a lot of folks that have been doing this for a while. Do you remember the moment where you realized, shit, things are different from here on out? It's going to be a different game as we move forward.
Yeah, it was probably around 2001, 2002. I kind of noticed that things were shifting. Um, there, there were a lot of things that happened at the
Sure.
same time, and it was really hard to pinpoint exactly what caused what.
Yeah.
One thing was like the whole streaming Napster thing that happened. And then musical tastes changed, and 13-year-old girls like support like one artist one day and the label has money because of it, and then they change drastically to new artists, and they're a very fickle audience is what I'm trying to say, except for I guess Taylor Swift's audience. It was just incredible. But like there was an artificial bubble in the music business with everybody rebuying their music catalog on CD after they had vinyl.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
And so you had all these, and that actually, I think, was the biggest problem that the music business had. And this is, I'm no business person in that sense, but think of it this way. When you, basically what happened is like the music business put the value on the medium and not on the content, because they made you buy a CD because it's a better medium than vinyl. If they had done, and maybe the software companies learned from the music business mistake, they had done what the software companies do, which is, okay, you go in, pay us for the update. You have the product, but it's better now. So give us like the difference, right? Or whatever. Like give us some money. You don't have to buy the whole thing again. Just give us some money. This subscription model is like a perversion of that, I suppose. But but if the music business had done this, and it's like, okay, bring us your vinyl, your inferior medium, and you get the CD for half price, then you would have that one copy of the song, and the value is on the song, not the medium, right? Because then the medium became free. The hard drive.
Hard to compete with free.
Exactly. And so all of a sudden, people are like, why do I want to buy it? It's free. As opposed to, no, there's the content is what you're buying, not the medium. So I think that was a big, like a big problem back then.
When did you decide? And I'm sure. Have you always had like a studio at home? Have you always had stuff at home, or did you?
No. I never wanted to have it. I never wanted to have a goddamn studio. I'm serious. It's true. It's like, it's so much upkeep. It's like gears, like fucking connecting shit. The fucking stuff gets dirty and you have to fix it. Like,
When did you put your studio in? Which I'm sure was part of the result of, again, like you said, smaller budgets. You kind of saw the writing on the wall. Things are going to change. What was that process mentally? Were you like, honey, we need to find a room in the house that I can own now? Or
that was, it was a bit of a process. Like I love gear, but I never wanted to have a studio, right?
Okay.
And so when we made all those, and the reason is like studios were really super expensive. That's why you had them. That's why the record budgets were like in the hundreds of thousands of dollars back in the day, right?
Yeah.
Just a tape budget was like $6,000 to $10,000 per record.
Jeez.
It's crazy, right? To think of that now.
Yeah.
Like a tape machine's $30,000. A fucking SSL is like $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. Like you just can't like expect people to have that, right? Anyway, so but Pro Tools came about. Digital, Sonic Solutions, then Pro Tools, then Avid. That came about, and we started to dip our toes in it with the White Zombie record, where Charlie Clouser was working on Pro Tools and giving us the tracks, and we actually transferred between the two studios on ADAT machines or on ADAT tapes. Yeah, so that was a fun thing to do. It worked great. We got it done. It was awesome. But that was our first taste of Pro Tools, of what can be done with that thing, right? And so Terry bought a Pro Tools rig, and I think the first album that he had a Pro Tools rig with was Around the Fur.
Wow. Okay.
That was the first. We didn't recording on Pro Tools. We recorded on tape, but we had Pro Tools running in tandem. And I would do some of the things, not that Charlie Clouser did. Like I have no way of touching his genius, but certain rudimentary things that he helped us do, I was able to like clean up toms and kick and snare samples and stuff like that. That became a different world when you didn't have to trigger them anymore off of H3000s and the AM RMX 16s and stuff like that. Yeah, was it? I don't even remember the DMX 1580, RMX 1580, RMX. Those are the ones. The AMS box.
Yep.
Yeah. Got to get my alphabet straight.
Too many things.
Right. So we sampled all those off of all the kick and snare samples off of that, and cleaned up the toms manually with mute buttons and the consoles, and that's stuff that went away with the Pro Tools getting locked in, and that's, ended up buying my own Pro Tools rig at some point, probably 96, 97 or something like that. And then we just dragged those Pro Tools rigs along with us to the studios. And it was about 2006 where I decided I needed to have the ability to mix records at home. Because there was too many cool bands coming through that just did not have the budget to pay me and the studio. All right.
Sure.
And so I actually did the second Static record in Logic.
Wow.
Oh, yes. That was something. Like Logic back in the day.
It was still E-Magic then, right? It was still
E-Magic.
Wow.
And it was incredibly powerful. It still is. Everything that's under the hood now in Logic was out in the open. And so you had to fight your way through the environment. Literally, you had stuff to deal with in Logic that if you, as a complete novice, Terry was like, here's Pro Tools, make it happen. I was like, okay, I know nothing about it, so this is my pay. Take a little while. And so he maybe put the Pro Tools rig together, and I was deep in manuals and like back we had the inter application communications bus. I don't know if you remember that one, the IAC, where Pro Tools, nightmares. Where Pro Tools could talk to Logic, because Pro Tools didn't do MIDI. No. Logic didn't do audio.
Yeah.
And so you needed to put Logic in sync, and then switch over to Pro Tools, press play, switch back over to Logic, and whack that into whatever the sound capture mode for the MIDI extraction for the audio files, whatever the fuck we were doing. But the DMX, the DM5 was in there triggering the things off of Pro Tools. Just fucking chaos. But ended up with Logic started to do audio, and it was 4.3. I remember that. I was doing Logic because of the MIDI stuff that we needed for the Static record. I used Logic, but then for every 16 audio tracks, you need to have one MIDI track for automation. It was so good. It was so good. Anyways, but we made it through. It sounded great. It worked all really well. But then in 2006, I was like, okay, I'm going to revisit this Logic thing and see what this is like now, because I had heard good things, like Apple had taken it over and streamlined it. And they had so many plugins that came along with it already at that time. I'm just like, okay, I just need like a simple thing. And I remember doing it Static, and I put this Logic rig together. And it worked really well because I had mixed one record in Pro Tools. It was the Bleeding Through album. And it was, granted, I wasn't used to mixing in Pro Tools.
Sure.
But it was such a pain in the ass to mix in Pro Tools for me. Like, it's just the workflow was so cumbersome at the time. I don't know what it's like now, because I really don't use Pro Tools anymore. I'm sure they've done things, but back then, if you wanted to insert something in a channel, you had to stop. You couldn't listen and insert something, like to stop. Same thing with looping a section. Like, you select the loop, you loop it, you stop, you select another thing, you loop it, stop. And that's just, you automate something. You have to open the plugin, you have to select automation, decide what you want to automate, close it back up, and then you can automate things. It's just like, so many steps. Like, fucking just let me work, And so I just was so unhappy at the time with that. And then went back into Logic. I was like, the workflow is really super easy. And the new Macs that come out, the Intel Macs, the universal
Audio.
the
UAD.
satellite thing,
Yeah.
the UAD thing came out. There's still the PCI cards at the time, and the SSL plugin from Waves came out, and I mixed all my records in SSL, so that was like home. That stupid little plugin was home. All right, and I was really surprised of how well it all worked. There was also Liquid Mix from Focusrite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Wow.
had that thing.
You
That
still
was
got the
pretty
greatest
fun.
hits. You're going through the reel now. All right.
Yeah, right. And then I had a little Mackie Huey. Was it a
Yeah.
Huey or
The human user interface. Another
right?
acronym.
I think that's what it was.
It was either the Mackie or the D8B. Those were their two digital products.
No, it's the Mackie.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Huey, and so I had my little faders and had everything was working, and the phaser was slow. You know, the whole USB thing was a little drag. But then the Artist series came out, the Euphonics, and those things were great with the Yukon protocol with the Ethernet and everything, or the Cat5 anyways. Yeah, it was Ethernet. And that was just really nice. And all of a sudden I found myself, yeah, I can make this work. Like this is actually great. I still was using outboard equipment because you're supposed to, you know, because it's analog, it sounds better, whatever. And then I was taught a lesson by my 3-year-old son, who came in and changed all the mix settings. I was like, all right, we're just going to use plugins from now on because this really sucks.
Wow. That's amazing though. Good on him. He showed you the light.
He loved it. There's also Sharpie on everything. But yeah, that was the life. But you know, it really came down to this. Like, it's kind of a switch. Like the whole hybrid thing, I guess it works for some people. It doesn't for me. Right? Or I quickly learned that it doesn't for me. It was kind of like a switch that happened to me. Like I'm going digital now, and like all things go that direction, right? Because the other thing, I was just kind of fighting the two worlds. Like tracking analog stuff, obviously you need to because mic pre's, right?
Sure.
And compressors and all that stuff is really fun. But when it comes to mixing thing, you're really substituting one thing for the other, right? And that's basically 2006 was when that happened. To come back and actually answer your question.
That's good. I love it.
So 2006, it was about sometime in the summer. I was mixing a record on SSL at you know, a studio I always worked at. And they're still there and they're doing great, and I love that. But I was there. I will never mix in the box. This will never happen. And in December 2006, I was mixing the first Dethklok back in the box. I was like, I will never work on a console ever again. This is stupid. And it really kind of was like that. And I never looked back. And the reason for it is, that was like in the attic. Like we have a big A-frame attic. It was all built out, and it was really nice up there. It's like a compression ceiling, if you will, the way it was situated. And it worked great. It's actually a good sounding room. But I found myself needing to record. So we ended up building out the studio, like in the garage in the back of the house, and expanded it. And it's a nice little place. It's not huge, but it serves a purpose. That was about 2010.
Wow. So, okay. So you've been landlocked there since around 2010, which is great. So then this is a great segue because before I let you go, I know a lot of people, that's you, I'm talking to you out there on the internet. I know a lot of people are always curious about your relationship with Brendan and Dethklok. How did that come about? How did you start getting involved with television's favorite animated metal band?
I got a message from MySpace. I did. I totally did. His name is Ryan Page. He was a line producer at the time, I believe. And he was like, hey, we got a guy who likes your stuff. You want to make a cartoon death metal record? And I was like, I'll try anything once. And so we met up shortly after and we got along, and it's been a really great working relationship.
So when you saw the first time it all came together, what was your initial thought? You see the animation, you hear the music, you see like everything's done for the first time. You're witnessing Metalocalypse. What is your go-to? Like, are you like, holy shit, this is amazing? Or you're like, what the hell is this?
I actually, it's a little different. Actually, I came in just a little ways in because he had already done like a season or two of it, and I just came in to make the record.
Yeah.
So I'd already seen.
I was talking about like the tour with the I should have specified.
With the tour
screens,
and everything.
Yeah. Where it all comes together, and you're just sort of like, how is this work?
Oh no, that's I mean, that's really awesome. It's always cool to see a tour come together. You know what I mean? Like what they have is obviously something very unique because it's basically, it's like basically a silent movie with a live pit orchestra.
Yeah.
Ultimately that's kind of like what I look at. And so that's very different from literally any other band that's just a band who has like some video content at their shows. Right. And so he definitely knows how to put together a spectacle and an entertaining tour and, have fun and have really brutal music. And it's all comes together and comes to life like that. And that's always really fun to see.
When you did the first one, did you envision that there would be two more? Did you think this would keep going, or it would be a one-time thing?
I certainly had no idea where it would go. I'm probably not even going out on a limb, but I don't know that Brendan did at the time. That's why the first album was almost a double album.
Yeah.
We just, let's do all of them.
So is it different working with Brendan on the Dethklok stuff versus the Galacticon stuff? Does he work differently? Do you guys approach it differently, or is it very similar?
As far as my work is concerned, it's pretty much the same. I don't think I think he has more freedom to experiment more, obviously, like musically. Like he's not beholden to like, okay, Nathan Explosion's singing all the song. So, but as far as making the records are concerned, it's fairly similar. I mean, aside from learning from previous things and not doing certain things anymore or whatever, but by and large, the same thing.
Nice. Do you see that ever stopping, or are you just going to keep going? Is it going to be, death?
Oh, that's entirely up to Brendan. I'd love to make more records with him.
Yeah. Good.
I'm actually going to his house.
Yeah, that's a very fun. It's such a unique component of our community and the culture, and it's again, to your point, I don't think anybody would have ever thought in a million years at any point in time there would be an animated metal band with a #1 show on a cable network putting out not only great episodes and content from the scripting of the show, but then also creating companion kick-ass music that could stand on its own, whether it was, it's such a weird concept. And I still don't think people have wrapped their heads around that it's the same Brendan Small from Home Movies. I don't think people have put those two worlds together and realized that he is the real deal kick-ass musician, guitar player. This is not like, if anything, the TV stuff is the weird part of his life. The rock and the music and the metal and everything else makes perfect sense.
Right. Yeah, totally. No, he's a powerhouse. There's no doubt about it.
So you had mentioned too, obviously you're working from home. You spend a lot of time at home. You've got the family. How do you balance it all out? One of the things we talk about with people that have home studios and that generally work from home is how they maintain their family work balance when they could so very easily bleed into one another since you're around everyone all day. Do you have any steps, anything, any advice you can give, any experiences you've had that work to keep those two worlds balanced for you?
Yeah, that was a little rough. The good thing is definitely it allowed me to be involved in my kids' lives. I would just break up the day. My world usually was like get up at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning and help get the kids to school, and then just start cranking the metal at 8.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a very unmetal kind of thing to say, I guess. I'm supposed to like not be done throwing up until about 3 p.m. or
Right.
something.
Of course.
But yeah, so you crank the metal from 8, 9 o'clock till about 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Then it's back to family time until, when the kids are smaller, they go to bed earlier, obviously. So that's easier. But when they're older, they're on their own. They don't want to see you anyway. So that's fine too. So after dinner, you get back to work till about, midnight or so.
Are they fans of what Dad does for a living? Do they comprehend it in the big scheme of things yet?
Well, for starters, they're my kids, so they hate everything I do. No, they're good. They're not impressed.
Yeah.
Per se, you know what I mean? Like they like it, and they brag a little bit about it, I guess, here and there. Maybe that's wishful thinking, probably. I don't know. But I don't think they hate me. So that's good.
That's good. They know they have metal dad. Do they?
Yeah, they know, and they're old. Like they're 18 and 23 at this point, so they're, they
are they metal fans? Did they end up falling too far from the tree?
Daniel likes like all sorts of music and definitely listens to like a bunch of different stuff that's in the heavier world. Very eclectic taste, really, all around. And Beatrice, she goes anywhere from Fiona Apple to sillier, more current things.
Sure.
That are more fun. Not much of a metalhead, really.
Are either of them musicians? Do they play anything?
No, they're not.
Smart.
One of them
go to school and get an education. That's smart.
That's what I've been trying to tell them. Yeah.
So okay, so we have this kind of. I have this question again. Generally, as I wind down with everyone, and I'm like, there's this trend of a question that I started asking a few podcasts back. So I'm going to ask you, at any point in time in your career, including now, even up to now, do you ever have imposter syndrome or deal with imposter syndrome? Like, are they going to find out I'm not good enough? Are they going to find out I'm not the right guy? Or that, is this the end? My best days are behind me. I'm not ever going to be able to top that. Does that ever come up for you?
Yeah, right now I'm sitting here wondering if I'm going to release this podcast.
No, it's definitely happening.
Like I think not in a bad way, more in a way of like in a keep me on my toes kind of ways. Like, oh, I want to make sure this is as good as the last thing. And I don't want people to think that I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, that's kind of a thing that happens anyways. Like you just kind of sometimes forget what you were doing and you like, okay, how do I fucking plug this in again? I forgot what this piece of equipment does. You know what I mean? Like that kind of shit happens anyways. But overall, like, I've been doing it long enough that I know that I think I know what I'm doing largely.
But again, so.
Well, thank you. But at the same time, I learned so much all the time from the newer kids coming through. It's like, hey, we do this now. It's like, oh, that's pretty cool. It's like, what the fuck is that you're using? Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what keeps it fresh and keeps you going. But at the same time, you go like, every once in a while, you're like, am I really the right person for this? Like, well, what am I doing here?
Have you turned down any gigs in retrospect that you wish you hadn't had?
Yeah. That's definitely something that has happened.
Do they haunt you, or are you just at peace with it?
Oh, you have to be at peace with it, otherwise.
Well, that's what you tell you tell yourself you have to be at peace with it. So, I mean, that at least that's the lie. Right. I mean, if you're going to lie to yourself first. So
sure, yeah.
And then conversely, do you ever listen to anything you've done and ask yourself or think to yourself, "Damn it, I wish I would have done this instead, or I wish I would have turned that up, right? Of this mix would. Do you ever listen back and think, man, I was so close to what I visioned in my head, or are you at peace with the work when it's done, and that's why it's done?
Oh, you have to be done with it. And that comes back to the snapshot in time thing. Like you can't beat yourself up for it. That's for sure.
Do you
Right.
think the digital component of the way music is made and distributed these days has affected that thought process of the snapshot in time for a lot of people? Do you think that we're too future forward, or too, is it, you know, is it cutting edge? Are we too in the moment, or do we think there are still people out there trying to just grab the thoughts as they existed and move on?
I think that depends on the person. I think you have people that are like very much, okay, this is it, put it out, like instantly. Like, and there's others that because they have the ability to work on it indefinitely, who will never release it or close
Chinese
to never
democracy.
release it. Yeah, we're back to that. So I think I don't know that that there's an answer society wise, but
Mhm.
I think there's an answer for individuals.
Hmm.
But that's
So
different for everyone.
obviously the latest everything in the world is AI related. As at the time of
Mhm.
this podcast, for prosperity, for our robot overlords, I had to talk about it before,
I'm not here.
yeah.
I'm not here.
Do you, I mean, we could go down 18 different rabbit holes with AI and its predicted effect on what we love and all these other things. And uh, from my vantage point, great technology is wonderful. There are going to be people that abuse the system. There are going to be shit songs that come out made with AI that are super popular and make a lot of people a lot of money. And that's, to me, AI isn't new in that sense. There have always been shit songs that come out and make people a lot of money.
Yeah.
But from I hear people worrying preemptively about the effect it has on the desire for young people to learn to play an instrument or to learn to be in a band or to do those things. Now, I also think that that's a component of, at least here in American culture, that's never going to go away. There's always going to be something like that. But do you see in rock and metal? I mean, rock and metal seems to be pretty impervious to everything. I mean, we created and then survived the satanic panic of the 80s. We had all the new metal. Yeah, it's like we've done all the things and we're still here on different levels. From an AI standpoint, from your career as a producer, someone who ultimately earns their living coming in and giving direction and guidance, and now someone can just push a button and say, I want it to sound like the Deftones meets Power Man 5, and it's done. Do you see it affecting your circle in any other way, or is it just another one of those, well, for now it's just a flash in the pan, we'll worry about it later?
Well, I think that whole subject is potentially is probably a lot deeper than just this one answer. Um, right now, I would say AI is just a tool, and right now, I don't even want to call it artificial intelligence because I don't think it actually is more like a plagiarism software than anything else.
It's just faster Google.
Kinda, and
Yeah.
wrong Google, giving you
Yeah.
wrong answers. I think it so much depends on the prompts that you give it, what the outcome is going to be. I think somebody who can really work it well can come up with really cool things and have it be a cool tool. Um, the the darker effects would be like, is it really going to like ruin mankind? You know what I
Sure.
mean? Like how bad is this going to get? Like, is it actually going to get to the point where it's going to be bad? Like, like we thought autotune is going to ruin music, but and
Now
then
it's a
some
meme.
it
It's a
has.
punchline now. Yeah.
Right, right. And so I don't know. Like right now, I I have the luxury of not being afraid or to not have to be afraid of it
Sure.
because of my advanced age. I can retire and be a greeter at Walmart and be
Nice.
fine. And
Yeah.
so I can just like be a volunteer in a like a Forest Ranger situation or something.
That'd be amazing.
But yeah, so I have the luxury of not having to worry about it as far as my job is concerned. Will it create jobs differently in the future for up and coming music related things? Maybe, I don't know. It's just a big unknown, I think. Like right now, I'm not too worried because I don't think AI is creative in and of itself right now.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. And again, like I had alluded to earlier, sometimes the community gets stagnant and we find things that we need to obsess over and create drama over. And this seems
Yeah.
like, but at the same time, we know that the history of our love, music is always the first loss leader for any technological advancement, right? Whether it's the iPhone, put all my songs in the phone. It's always the one thing, to your point from earlier, that gets devalued to sell something else. So what's the lowest hanging fruit for the first batch of AI to fuck with? Videos and songs. So it's like, okay.
Right.
And then they'll teach it other stuff and then it'll run nuclear weapons. We won't have to have this conversation because Cyberdyne systems will take over. And, James Cameron was right. It was prolific. He knew the whole time where this was headed, but we won't be
He
here.
started it. It's because of him.
It's his. So,
Yeah.
okay. You have things to do and places to go, but I want to ask, and it's a general question, but when you are looking at people prospectively, again, just pursuing this thing we love, music, and they're out there and they're doing it, they're doing the grind, they're doing whether they're making a record, they're playing live. From everything you've seen and everything you've learned, if you get one piece of advice that's going to help them in any facet of their career in this beautiful world we call music, and again, that's such a nuanced question already, but what would you tell someone that's just still out there doing it, just still trying to make the best music they can and follow the dream? The dream is still alive. It's probably frustrating, but the dream is still alive. What kind of advice do you, on the other side, who's sort of already done this hero's journey yourself through time and space, what do you share with them as something they can use in any one of the scenarios they're going to come against in our world here?
I don't know that I don't have anything in particular to say other than, musicians make music because they're musicians and they'll always do that. And so the main part is to just keep doing it because you like doing it,
Mm.
you know? Um, the, we don't really do it for the adoration, for the fans, for the business, for the this and that. Like we do it because we like making music,
Mm.
you know? And yeah, it's frustrating. There's other things that are frustrating, like if you're serious about any profession and you're taking it on as a profession, there's a component of it that is bullshit. And that is the component you're getting paid for.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
So like as a dentist, you like, working on people's teeth. You would do that for free because you like it. But the fucking office stuff, dealing with insurances, fucking parking validations, whatever the fuck, that's the shit you're getting paid for.
Right.
Right. Same thing with music. Like, like you play the shows for free because you like it, but you're getting paid for being on a tour bus for 23 hours.
Yeah. Wow.
And so
that's actually great. That's great perspective. That's what it's there for. That's why you do it that way. Wow.
Yeah.
I love it. Ulrich Wild, the first person, by the way, the first native-born Swiss person on the podcast. So there'll be a plaque in the mail. You can hang it probably.
I will put it up.
But in case you didn't know, we really are grateful, and we are so. It's not lost on us what a privilege it is for you to spend time with us and to share your wisdom with us. So from the bottom of our hearts here at Toon Track, just thank you. We love you, man. And if there's anything we can do in any venture, the answer is yes. Just let me know. I'm not hard to find, as you know. So,
all right, sounds good.
But just thanks for your time. I'm going to just say goodbye to these people and then we'll sign off. So, Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, hopefully children of the appropriate age to watch the content we just provided for you. Check with your parent or no, I don't care what you do. I'm not your mom or dad. That's on you. Thank you for spending time with us on the Sound Horizons podcast, brought to you by TuneTrack. We appreciate you. We hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode where we will have someone equally cool, but not with the same moniker of super groovy, kick-ass, cool, awesome that we gave. So just, it's separate. It's the same, but separate. We don't want there to be any confusion and no hurt feelings. If you didn't like what you heard, please leave it in the comments, because I love trolls and my motto is I'm not happy till you're not happy. So let's make sure we complain about something. Otherwise, the terrorists win. Have a wonderful day, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care.